Welcome to the spotlight. Welcome to your show. Welcome to my show. Welcome to my world. Welcome to this channel. Welcome. Yes, the spotlight where we go beyond the news. We give you credible information that you deserve. Okay, now just as we've been telling you, our second season, we are doing much more informative, in-depth analysis and higher level of content that will have to be, you need to listen to it for us all to make a good inroads in our world. That is what our season is all about. So welcome to our show. Now, today, what are we talking about? We are talking about a global food crisis loomingly. It's looming. Today, I'm going to talk about agriculture. If you love agriculture, this is a feature. It's a feature. It's not a trending issue. It's a feature, but it's something that is looming. A idea. Kakra. We are Ghanaians. We are Africans. We need to sit down and start making deeper thinking. Okay. There is one thing I was looking through Planting for Food and Jobs on my website, and I'll come and tell you something about that. Just be part of our show. Just subscribe to this page, part of this channel, and let's all zoom. We are going straight to our spotlight for today.
Bayira a bit the whole Ghana because a stress on our phone, almost Bayira can Ghana North region. On Bayira bucket, see, I can say, Papa. It might mean, we are creating my two way. Mohau, waha, any dear him. How fine a quine baha. Soon you top it, not no by night. I can with him. It's meaning I be pro. Gee, the and Wabe Palm and work up with. I guess now by say, I'll meet me a boy, a quiet, and I drew the bush stream, so I'm coming to Tisuka and I said to me, boy. Lawe for I'm more a free set. The Muhan say, Abano, and one day some more quanyam the comb for mono, and yet. And a drum the bush spring, so no boy ding. And I might say, I want you to cry day, Abamoso. Is it always said by you, the words say, Grano, Munya crammer for some of the Becoro. Is the room here by the Baba Proqua. Aha. And to your friends, the mini of this, you were Tibuating. I say, a or Chamia Nim, Asamka, was an Osumua. La wherefore, a queer focus here. When lawyer and the appear could be more constituency.
So, like I was saying, we are doing a feature on the looming global food challenges. But you see, here me for us to learn from whatever is happening in the other parts of the world, to tell the duty bearers to do the right things. Ghana for us to have a food sufficient, country as it were. I say whatever we do as a nation will go forward. Now, like I said, there is a global food run-up. The hunger crisis is getting worse. It's a report from the Bloomberg, and I am very grateful to share my thoughts with you after I read it. Now, from here, the question we are asking is, what is food security? Everybody has his own understanding of food security. But from our definition, this is what we want to say. Food security exists when all people at all times have physical, social, and economic access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food. The safe and nutritious food meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and a healthy life. The definition is very long, but I want to just break it down. What I'm trying to say is this. When we are saying a nation is having food sufficiency or a household, if you back omo eduane na omo kese omo eduane di ye mpempenso a ebutumi ahwe omo so a na yepese yeka ene say omo eduane di no ewo ho ema obia omo nya no ema omo apomden ewo ne ombehia ewo omo enkro ne mba a omo sika betumi ato ebetumi abo omo no mo di eduane omo benya eduane mu nduro nyina ewo mbribia mu obama omutumi atenase ewo ahodin mu. That is food security. Now, with this, when we come to a nation, so we are saying that a nation will have a food security when all people within the nation at all times will have their physical, social, and economic needs being able to sufficiently, the word is sufficiently, getting everything in terms of access to food and everything that goes with agriculture. That builds a nation up to have food security. So you get my point.
Taking these grains, making it 21st century foods. And also, we need to stop overemphasizing on small-scale farming. We need to prepare for large-scale farming, because you look at most of these rural areas, or just farming in general, most of the, you find a lot of small-scale farmers, right, but there's not enough large-scale. So we are not thinking way ahead. And also, there are varieties of foods that we need to tap more into. Right. You go to the market, you can easily find rice from Thailand, from China, but you can't find local grains like millet, like fonio. So people are not eating that enough. And I think it's very important to start thinking about self-sustainability. We need to be nationally self-sustainable more. And that involves also making agriculture a priority, because our lives depend on it.
And internet, Bob Marley of blessed memory sang a song, and there's a phrase, he said, in the abundance of water, the fool is always thirsty. Why am I using this adage at this point in time? Now, Africa as a continent, we have an arable lands, with the exception of those within the Sahara region, Niger, Mali, thereabouts, Mauritania, no more Sahara. Even there, Crampo, there are some of the produce that goes there, because Ghana, we import onion from Niger. So they even have good land that can cultivate a onion to the level of they exporting it to Ghana. So this is what we are talking about. Now, in Ghana, our arable land goes beyond understanding. Every part of this country, whatever you grow, it will come up. Whatever a seed you put on the soil, it will grow. It is a nation God has blessed us so much. A nation that every part of your mind would be a baby. There is something we call 4 pillars of food security. Now, one is availability of food. 2, access to food. Utilization of food. Then the stability of food. This is what we call the 4 pillars of food security. So the question I want to ask you, which I really want you to give me your comments on the comment section, is this. Do we, as a nation, Ghana, do we have that level of food sufficiency for all? You know the answer. Maybe we'll break it down later. Now, the second question is, do you have the enablers? What can capacitate us to be able to ensure food security for everybody? And also with me, Have we gotten the right policies to effectively utilize the availability of arable lands as we have to ensure us to have food security? The answer is yes. But do we have the policy? It is yes. Are we using it? That is another question. You have to give me your answer in the comment section. Let's continue. And that is why, for me, when I read the story at the Bloomberg feature on food security, I was alarmed because what did they say? They said there's going to be more hunger. The prediction from Bloomberg are saying, in fact, in a crystal breaking down, they made mention of the fact that by December, countries within the sub-Saharan Africa who normally import rice from the Southeastern Asia should brace themselves because the prices of food, especially the grains, rice and the rest from the Southeast Asia, are going to go high. And they had a breakdown to that.
I just want to tell you that I've been able to put together some countries that, according to Website results, have placed a ban on export of grains.
Which people?
So we're talking about India, for instance. India has banned wheat exports and, of course, rice. As the price of grain surged this year.
Already?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, the article was saying that they may start banning.
No, they have actually banned.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah.
India.
Yeah, that's right. So India is the world's second largest producer of wheat and then also accounts for about 13% of global production.
And they've banned what?
Basmati rice and then also wheat for that matter. If you go to Russia, we know Russia has restricted wheat and sunflower oil shipments since December 2021 to curb domestic inflation and ensure food security. Now, Russia is the world's largest wheat exporter and accounts for about 20% of global exports. Now, let's go to Ukraine. Now, Ukraine has imposed a quota on wheat exports and banned sunflower, oil exports since January 2022. Amid the war with Russia, we know there was some deal that was signed with the Russians in order to ease, the export. But for some reason, Russia is not happy, and they have actually, imposed further blockade. And we're told that Ukraine is the world's fourth largest exporter of wheat and the largest exporter of sunflower oil. Then go to Egypt. Egypt has banned wheat exports since February 2022 to preserve its strategic reserves and meet domestic demand. Now, Egypt is the world's largest importer of wheat and relies on imports for about 60% of its consumption. Now, Kazakhstan has also imposed
So the bans have already started?
Yeah, that's right.
So protectionism has already begun?
Yes. Then Kosovo, Serbia, Indonesia.
So what about Ghana?
Argentina.
Their prediction could be very true. But you see, in a country like Ghana, when they mention a prediction of more hunger, we should be very alert and think of what can we do under the circumstance. What can we do if there is a deeper research that has come out to say that, hey, countries are more depending on imports. They be more importo. Then it suffices to say that everybody within the country must sit alert. We shouldn't sit aloof. We shouldn't sit unconcerned, but we should be alert, thinking of what could be the remedies. What can we do to remedy this situation? And that is where we are coming from. Okay? All right. So let's continue. Let's continue. Now, they are saying that the number of people facing life-threatening hunger jumped by the third quarter to a fourth quarter. So therefore, it increased within the last years. And then the reason includes economic shocks, conflict and trade disruptions stemming from Russia, Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, and Abaha. It is a very important thing because Ukraine, as we all know, is a grain basket. Ukraine, they contain the whole world. I think about half of the world's, growers when it comes to wheat. Omu grow wheat pa. And from time Russia started say omu tisha omu sono brodo. Ewa Ghana ne boye ding. You remember there was a time bread, the prices went high, and even right now pa akofom kakra no still omu njai sanya price in it and sanity. They haven't changed.
So to provide a context of what I will be sharing in this discussion, we at TECAS, we are working with smallholder farmers in Ghana, around 31,000 of them, and we are doing 1,000 acres of regenerative agriculture. So as somebody working with smallholder farmers, the biggest challenge is the high input cost of agricultural production, exacerbated by the war, and most of all, climate change.
Sarah, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I wish there was one issue. I think that the thing that makes our food systems, whether actually in Africa or anywhere else in the world, sort of what they are, is that they're deeply complex and they're very intertwined. And so the different sort of points that you made, which is debt, climate, geopolitical tensions, and then just the lack of sort of scale and sort of productivity gap that exists on the continent. I mean, they're all sort of interconnected, and it's hard to say today if this one thing got fixed, everything would be fine. There sort of isn't that magic bullet approach, which is why changing systems takes time and sort of why, you know, why it's so complicated as an issue. But I would say there isn't a single issue. The confluence of issues, though, is truly unprecedented in terms of just the number of things happening.
They haven't changed. They haven't changed at all. Now, the economic shocks. We are talking about the fiscal policies that should be the enablers, that should contribute effectively for the farmers, the farming value chain, and but this is the agricultural value chain. Are we having the right economic policies that should support the outgrowers, that should support the farmers, that should support all those within the value chain to do their work so that they ensure say bibia be cost one. The second one, conflict and trade disruptions. This is called geopolitical conflicts. The geographical politics now with the geopolitical structures and you see the differences in opinion in different countries and their policies for security and agriculture and what have you. That is why there is this report from China. Let me read this for you. Let me read this one for you. Chinese. Yes, he said China is an example of a nation particularly worried about ensuring there are enough food. The president of China, Xi Jinping, sees the country's reliance on food import as a national security issue, and the government is pressing farmers to boost soybeans farmers. Sorry. Let me read that portion again. He said, the president, Xi Jinping, sees the country's reliance on food import as a national security issue, and the government is pressing farmers to boost soybean harvest using combination of subsidies, government stockpiling, and public pressure. This is China. The Chinese phone will say, the looming hunger challenge, and therefore they need to find a way of stopping it, and into use government-owned subsidies and economic support, financial support, to help the farmers increase their yields in terms of soybean. Now, soybean, it's critical because with soybean, when you have the addition with the corn and what have you, your poultry, subsector will grow. Number two, soybean, it could be part of the staple foods in China. So when you are doing all this back and forth, the question you ask yourself is, what about Ghana?
The question we are asking this morning is, what is Ghana's readiness? The story on Bloomberg this morning is a global, so I'm just going to read it quickly. Then we'll narrow it down some local issues. And I'm going to read it again. I read parts of it on the newspaper review. Mounting concerns over tighter global supply are amplifying risk of a fresh wave of trade protectionism as governments look to ensure ample food reserves. Right? The return of the El Nino weather pattern, which could dry up water-dependent rice crops in Asia, is exacerbating those fears. Rice is more valuable commodity than before El Nino started up and Russia escalated its attacks on Ukraine's wheat and corn exports, according to Peter Timmer, Professor Emeritus at Harvard University, who studied food security for decades. Prices could climb a further $100 a ton in 6 to 12 months. This is his warning. Prices of rice could climb a further $100 in the next 6 to 12 months. Now, the big question is whether the price rise will be gradual, giving consumers time to adjust without panic, or whether there will be a rapid spike to $1,000 a ton or higher, according to Trimmer, who worked with Asian governments on their recent policy response, on their policy response during the 2008 food crisis. That was when rice soared above those levels after export bans by major producers, notably India and Vietnam.
Yes. The question is, what about Ghana? Now, I want us to go to the Planting for Food and Jobs policy. It is a very good policy. I have to admit. It is a good policy that when I was reading, in fact, they quoted what transpired in the time of of Joseph in the scripture. Genesis chapter 37 verse 5. So we'll be on page now. This is what is written. Yes, just read it with me. It says, planting for food and jobs, the dream and vision of reality. He said, many doubted him. Some said it was not possible. One time, Joseph had a dream, and when he told his brothers about it, they hated him even the more. Well, this is what they have written on the website of the Planting for Food and Jobs. But, basically, the understanding from that context is that when it came to the Planting for Food and Jobs, the cardinal idea was that the nation need to increase our food yields from every area, from every subsector within the agricultural value chain. The idea is that so we increase sanoa ebeboa mu no me tumi aiden and increase the food basket of the nation. Because Sane can from the beginning. Sane can from the beginning say, when it comes to Ghana, there were good lands, but challenges are air koso and they, even though there are some level of complications, are the global nature, but in kind of we are ourselves on the foot. You know the reason? The reason is that though we have economic shocks, we have conflict and trade, that is the geopolitical issues, tensions that I mentioned. We have global warming, which is also a very big issue that we'll talk about it later. And we have complicated food security. All these things gather up to give us an idea, say, if Ghana had really invested so much millions of dollars into Planting for Food and Jobs since 2017, and they started saying you investing into Planting for Food and Jobs, and you know, so for 6-7 years down the line, we have not had a single impact. Your guess is as good as mine.
We as people, and one thing, for example, like the grains I've been talking about a lot, which I believe is very sustainable. Things like fonio and millet is drought resistant. You grow it within 8 to 12 weeks, we can harvest. But farmers are not growing enough. They are growing for sustenance for themselves because it's very tedious to produce. It's easy to grow, but when it comes to processing, because some of these grains are so tiny, there's not enough mechanization. So they don't have the tools to actually grow more of this food. So mechanization is very important. Training, equipping these farmers with the right tools. Make sure they can place value also, because farmers also need to understand the value of what they are growing. And that's one way to scale. If they understand the value, they can ask for a fair price. And most of the times they just go to it. So you go down there, you give them a peanut, they're also in a hurry to just collect it because they don't understand the value of it. And also some of the challenges in these communities that I have experienced with my work is that a lot of organizations have been going into these communities, making promises that they don't keep to. So farmers or just women or people in rural areas are not open anymore because there is no trust. So we need to also build trust because there are no contracts in these communities. when you say you're coming to pick a bag of rice or a bag of fonio, you should keep to your word. So they are not open anymore to collaborate. When they see you, they just think about cashing out now. They are not thinking long term. So even when you're bringing this project, you're telling them that, oh, we are building something. We are trying to create a space where you can scale and equip you the right tools. They don't believe it. They just want to cash out today. So they're not thinking long term.